Okay, so Bridget Hughes is going to lead our next session, and many of you know her quite well. Some of you don't know her at all, so I'd like to do a little introduction for you. So for most of the last 20 years, Bridget and her husband have run a business inside the Howard County Hospital, which is a Johns Hopkins facility. So what they do is they work with very sick people, basically one-on-one, to make them better. So quite often they're working with the oncologist, with the cancer patients, as an example. And so through this process, Bridget has learned quite a bit about possibility and breakthrough, two important ideas at Phillips. Bridget grew up with cerebral palsy. She was paralyzed for a good part of her life, the right side of her body. She's overcome most of that paralysis. She reads 20 or 25 books a month. She's written a book that's on Amazon, and for books that have more than 40 reviews, she has the highest ranking book on Amazon. She's an expert on nutrition. Few people know more about nutrition than she does. She's an expert on energizing the human spirit. So her mantra is joy irrespective of circumstance. And she role models this in an incredible way. So with that, Bridget, you're on.
Hi, everybody. Yay! So a few weeks ago, we were in planning meetings for this session, and I looked at the list of all the people coming and said, holy shit, that is so cool that many people are willing to take off work, make travel plans, do whatever it is to be here. That is incredibly cool. And someone said, yeah, don't mess it up. I said, can we reframe that a little bit to like, Bridget, crush it. So for weeks now, I've been hearing, Bridget, crush it. And, you know, another one of the points was, you got to do a session that's interesting for the people who have spouses here, interesting for the people who have spouses but aren't here, and interesting for people who don't have a spouse at all. So don't mess it up. I mean, crush it. So in efforts of crushing it this morning, I drank too much coffee, which is really bad for your adrenaline. So I'm in the middle of Benny's session and I gotta pee. Sorry, Benny. So I go out there to pee and I come back and I'm like really excited because part of crushing it is linking what's happened in the morning to what you're doing now. And there's a video crew out in the hall, and I'm like, oh, who are you here to video record? And they're like, the next session. Okay, thanks for the warning, Alan. And now the coffee adrenaline goes, and like every thought in my head goes out. So then I gotta sneak back into Benny's session, grab the notes, and be like, wait, what? What are we doing? Where am I? All right. So I'm going to tell you a couple stories about me so that you can get a sense of who I am and set the frame for what we're doing. But after that, you're not going to hear much from me at all because what we're going to do over the next 2 hours is a self-inquiry process. And I like to think of it as a self-revelatory process, which means that by going through the process I'm going to lead you through, that you'll have some type of revelation and hopefully transformative experience. And if you're here with your spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, I'm going to ask that you do the entire process with that person as your person. If you have a spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend, but they're not here, same thing. I'm going to ask that you do it for that person. And if you don't, you'll see that this process works equally well, in fact, incredibly well, in the workplace if you have a challenging relationship or a relationship that you hoped would be different in some way. When I came up with these questions over the last month, and when I went through it myself, once for my spouse and once for a challenging relationship, it was actually kind of incredible, the different awarenesses that percolated up. But first, a couple stories. So my husband and I are in the process of expanding one of our healing arts centers. So we're not only in Mach 10 build-out mode, but I get to interview lots of people to figure out who's going to join us as practitioners of healing arts that is really going to serve our patients. And, it's a little like a Phillips interview. You got to pick once and pick right, because you're probably going to be enmeshed with this person for the next 40 years, potentially. So you want to make sure your discernment is right on. Well, I've gotten the opportunity to be in on some kind of interesting Phillips interviews and brought in for some unique discernments that I have. I don't even think Alan knows this, that I actually had a stint for 1.5 years when I was 26 as an admissions interviewer for a graduate school. And I attained a certain level of fame very quickly because the problem with interviews is what? When someone comes in and interviews, being authentic. Somebody can pull a fake job real good, right? So the school that I was doing the graduate interviews for was a healing arts school, and they were very nice people. So they were nice interviewers, and they were nicely accepting just about everyone who applied. And then they were ending up screwed sometimes later because they were getting legal cases, like somebody who was inappropriate, with the patient, a man inappropriate, a woman doing these weird things. So they started bringing me into these interviews, and I was, the first 6 or 7 times, the assistant interviewer. So I would sit there quietly and watch this really nice interview unfold, and I could feel the interviewer about to close it up, like it's another yes, what a happy day in the neighborhood. And I'm like, this person's a faker. And I'm thinking in my mind's eye, I got one chance to ask one question to root out, what's the truth here? And it was 5 or 6 times of shock because I'd ask a question. It'd be an uncomfortable question. My co-interviewer, you could see him squirm in the chair and make a face oh my God, I can't believe you just asked that insulting thing. And then the interviewee would spill the beans. And then my co-interviewer would be like, holy shit, we can't take that person. I'm like, yeah, you can't take that person. So, and they'd always ask, how do you do it? How do you know it? Well, I can't stand small talk, and I can feel it when somebody's putting up the glossy personality. So I'm telling that part of the story because what we're going to do today has to do with not telling the glossy part of the story, getting into the real stuff. But also because now here it is 20 years later, and I'm interviewing people for my Healing Arts Center, and you ought to see the approaches. It's pretty interesting. I got one person who I'm CC'd on an email, and it says to another person, as per your suggestion, I've got my resume attached for Bridget. And I'm like, no greeting, no salutation. Delete. That's not gonna work in a healing arts center. Don't CC me on your first approach. Okay, but then there's another woman. She's pretty interesting. She'd done some branding work, some visioning, and she sent me some of her initial ideas of who she is and what she's about, and it was pretty impressive. So she makes it to the phone interview. But then something really unusual happens. And the first thing she says on the interview is, I did some journaling last night about this. Can I read you my journal entry? Now, I gotta admit, I had a split second when I was like, what? You wanna read me let's talk to me first. Okay, but I caught that and thought, wait, I'm going to have these people on Friday do some journaling. So I know this is right because sometimes ideas in our mind's eye that are hazy can crystallize into greater clarity with writing. So yeah, sure, read me what you wrote. And then she really shocked me. So she starts reading and she says, I have an interview tomorrow with Bridget Hughes and I am excited, but more I'm terrified because I'm very intimidated by Bridget Hughes. I mean, she's kind of like, I'm like catching my breath as she starts saying this because it's not what I'm expecting. And she says, and I looked her up on the internet and her bio intimidates me and I've seen how she dresses and that intimidates me and she seems like she has really high energy and I don't, and she's thin and I'm fat and I'm not sure that I'm going to be able to be valued and cherished for who I am if I go there, but I really hope I'm wrong about all these stories because I really want to be. Okay, so first of all, was that 100% yes or a no or a 50%? That was actually, for me, 100% yes. Why? Complete honesty. Skipped the small talk, right to the heart of the matter, radical candor, fearless woman. I mean, that is like so fearless to start out like that. And so then it was very quick that I could say, okay, give me like 20 seconds to undo all your stories. Yeah, I grew up with CP. I was so like embarrassed. I would like want to, disappear into walls. Then around like 23, I get diagnosed with a terminal illness. Like I still have a terminal illness theoretically. Like I'm missing a component of immunoglobulins that you're supposed to need to be alive. So that's why I know so much that I'm really smart and wrote a book, because all I did was research of how to stay alive since nobody thinks I can. And then concomitantly with that, I gained 95 pounds, so I spent like 10 years obese and too tired to get out of bed. And I still have to lay down for like 3 hours a day, which is how I read 25 books a month. Are you feeling better yet? Oh yeah, and my clothes, like a friend of mine came to me one day. I was already getting asked to speak at the hospital a lot. And my friend says to me, look, you have the most important message of anyone I know, but you lose half your audience before you even open your mouth because you look like a frump. And she says, but I'm going to do something about it, and proceeds over the next year to bring 70 bags of clothes. Okay, so like, all right. That level of authenticity of self-inquiry that my interviewee brought is what I'm hoping we get today, because we're going to get a whole different result in self-inquiry if we can inquire at that level. And by the way, nothing that anyone does in the writing exercises today has to be shared with anyone. And not only that, we have a ceremonial shredder here. So not only can you shred any evidence of any thoughts you don't want discovered, but you can also, at a point down the line, shred anything that you want to be free of as a ceremonial transformational process. We test drove this workshop 2 days ago, and someone in the group said that the process was so powerful, she had a mic drop moment. Like when you suddenly realize your whole worldview is different than how it was. So I'm hoping that happens as well. I'm gonna make a few man-woman jokes, which used to be something you shouldn't do when HR teams were around. But I figure it's kind of like okay now, because, I actually have patients, very cool patients. One lived for 60 plus years as a woman, raised 4 kids, went through a terrible divorce, and then said, screw this, and went on testosterone, changed the name, changed the dress, and married a really hot woman. Okay, then I got another patient who lived the first 25 years of his life as a man, and then decided this is not my true self, started taking hormones, living as a woman. So these are like extreme examples, but it's really almost hilarious to me in a life-engendering way that people would actually want to use hormones to access a different consciousness of the male or female type of energy. Like, that's cool, that's neat, like, that's interesting. So if I say male or female, I mean like the energies and like a person who's living that way, not like man, woman. So in 25 years of having patients come to me, there's a most common thing men say, and there's a most common thing women say. And it's really important for the work we're about to do. So the most common thing men say is, she always wants to talk and talk and talk and talk. And like she's trying to get something, but it doesn't work. So she's like starved for something, and I like can't give her the thing she wants. So just know this, if you're a woman who's like stored up a lot of conversations you're starved for like a tsunami, and you want to unleash them on your man like the Kraken when we're done, that's not going to be good. Okay? And the number one thing women say is, he's always got his face in the phone or thinking about something at work or composing emails in his head. And I can tell because when I look at him, his eyes are glazed over. I'm trying to talk and he's not listening. So we never connect, right? Okay. So I have some advice here. This is real gross generalization advice. The advice for a woman is if you want to have a lot of talking and small talking, call women. And the skill you want to learn with men is how to get in and get out with the meaningful connection, and like learn how to make the meaningful connection happen. And you'll see a little bit on one of the exercises that we do today. You don't even have to talk to have a very meaningful connection. And my advice for men is stop putting up a rigid wall that's like, don't bring the Kraken on me. I can't take any more conversations. Like, open up a little bit and like be willing to have a little bit of conversations. But there were women in our test group who were like, I can't wait to go home and talk about all this with my husband. And I was like, oh, calm down, calm down, calm down. Like, just like let something happen, and let what happens be something that you can cherish in your heart, but like don't need to like bullet point account for, right? You get what I'm after? One other thing that I want to point out before we get into the process is, this whole idea of like bringing vulnerability to a situation, having courage, daring greatly, right? Any Brene Brown fans in here? She wrote a whole book on daring greatly, which is based on the Theodore Roosevelt quote. So it turns out that Albert Phillips, founder of this company, Alan's dad, Kelly's granddad, actually had Theodore Roosevelt's daring greatly quote framed and on the whiskey cabinet. So kind of like Alan's this genius of culture and doing something really unique and I think kind of rare. And the fact that his dad prized this quote over all others, I think is like kind of like we're celebrating an early culture by taking a moment just to dwell with this quote. So I promise this is the only slide that's like got too many words on it, but you don't have to read it because I will. So the quote goes, "It is not the critic who counts, not the man who points out how strong man stumbles, or where the doer of deeds could have done them better. The credit belongs to the man who's actually in the arena, whose face is marred by dust and sweat and blood, who strives valiantly, who errs, who comes short again and again, because there's no effort without error and shortcoming, but who does actually strive to do the deeds, who knows great enthusiasms, the great devotions, who spends himself in a worthy cause, who at the best knows in the end the triumph of high achievement, and who at the worst, if he fails, at least fails while daring greatly, so that his place shall never be with those cold and timid souls who neither know victory nor defeat. We're about to start a process of self-inquiry. I'm going to ask questions, and there's going to be some writing. Each different question, I'm going to actually have you write on a fresh piece of paper, because at the end, there may be some pieces that you really want to hang on to remember what your mind's eye, what your intuition knows. And there are other pieces that might be really fun to ceremonially put through the shredder. The first one is the only exercise where we're going to do it in relation to your spouse if they're here. If you have a spouse or boyfriend or girlfriend and they're not here, I ask that you take some notes, and you may feel inspired at some point to text them or share them or just keep them for your own. If you were in my test group and already did your spouse, or if there's no spouse, no boyfriend, no girlfriend, I want you to choose someone whom you're in relationship with. Hopefully at work. Well, hopefully not at work, but hopefully somebody that you want to have a better relationship with, where there's some challenge or stuck point or struggle. Now, this very first one is actually the only one where I'm going to ask you to share. So what we're going to do is I'm going to have you write on your paper, what are the top 3 superpowers of your spouse? So go ahead now and write down your spouse or your person or your challenge person. And this is harder if you're doing a challenge person. Now, what we're going to do next, you're going to do this totally silently and ceremonially. You're going to turn to your spouse if they're here and hand them the piece of paper. And as the spouse receives, just give a bow of thanks. And then, in turn, hand back your list of superpowers, and the receiving spouse silently, totally silently. And if your spouse or person isn't here, you could text them or just hang on to this information for later. And take a moment of quiet cherishment. Hopefully they wrote some really good superpowers. Now the next step, we're going to do something interesting. We're going to slightly change the positioning. If you're here with your spouse, you and your spouse are going to put 2 chairs side by side, and you're going to do it so that you can sit back to back. Okay, I should say, if somebody's saying they're uncomfortable, it may be that your dumb partner is trying to use you as an easy chair. Don't use your partner as an easy chair. You gotta keep your spine upright, yoga style, so the energy can flow up your spine. And if you have your own weight supported, then a very nice equalizing, okay, that's right. If somebody's leaning too much on you still, even after I just said this, just drop forward so they can feel you're pushing them. Don't be pushing nobody. This is about learning the subtleties of being connected and in communication without even using words. All right. Now, here's another thing. As we go through the rest of this process, I'm going to read each question that I want you to write the answer to, and I'm going to wait about 10 seconds before I put it on the screen, because I don't really want you reading the screen and responding, but the question will go on the screen so that if suddenly like your mind goes blank or something before you've answered it fully, you can glance up there for a refresher. But the idea is to just even maybe close your eyes and take in auditorily what the question is, and then write to the best of your ability. And remember, there's privacy to this. This is a living example of being connected with someone, being in a spirit of growing together, but not really needing to know how each person's doing the inner growth. We can trust that however a person does their inner growth is good, and we don't have to like nail it down. All right, so the next thing that you're gonna write on a fresh piece of paper is what 3 words best characterize your spouse or person's brand. And I'm not giving a bunch of definitions about what branding is. I trialed this on my 11-year-old son, and he was like, this person's brand is smart and funny. He did his own brand, and he's like, funny, smart, and annoying sometimes. I mean, like, just that simple, like whatever comes to your gut. And some people are living their superpowers every single day. I told David Harris I was going to mess with him because he met one of my examples. Like, I have a feeling that David Harris's superpowers and his brand are going to be exactly congruent because this guy doesn't break brand much. But there's going to be other people who have superpowers, but they show up sometimes, but they're actually not the predominant 3 words that come to mind about how your person is in their day-to-day interactions with you. So what you're writing is the 3 words that best characterize your spouse or person in their day-to-day interacting with you. All right, next piece of paper. What 3 words best describe your brand? Okay, next piece of paper. What 3 words best characterize the brand of your relationship with this person? And I don't mean, the gussied up public thing. I mean like the day-to-day. And if you're doing this on a difficult person, and this might be really interesting answers, because when I did this on a difficult relationship, it was things like guarded, fake conversation, me even, good heavens. Yes, what 3 words best characterize the brand of your relationship? Okay, next paper. What 3 words do you wish characterized your relationship brand? And if you're in an amazing relationship and you already wrote 3 amazing words before, I want you to dream even bigger. What 3 words do you wish characterized your relationship brand? Okay, next paper. What would be the medicine to bring this wish to reality? Now, if you're making a face at me because you think that question's vague, that's intentionally vague. It's vague because it's open-ended. Now, you're probably noticing at this point that you get to be a little bit of an artist here because, we're like dreaming here. Like when I put what my top 3 wishes would be in a relationship, I mean, if hot sex didn't make it into the top 3, then that means it's 4th or lower, which I gotta think about. Like, is that my dream ideal? Like, what really things are the top 3 things that I really prize? And for me, one of those things, and I'm sorry about the swearing, but I actually put in my own notes like a fuck yeah, like spirit together, which for my husband and I, which we have, but not all the time. But I'm gonna just read you a quick note that I took to myself of what medicine I would have to bring this wish to reality. I would need to live in that vibe myself. I would need to rest more fully at night so I can be more fully in the zone all day. I would need to be funny more often. I would need to not be critical, not be groany, and have more enjoyment in the present. I would need to let go of wanting any of my other goals to be ahead of us connecting. I would need to let go of caring how tired or not I am and letting the connection be revitalizing instead of resting first. I need to bring more energy to the game. I would need to focus on anything that puts me in a fun mood, horsing around more, especially physicality, like how our 5-pound dog Shiloh does when he grabs a sock and runs away. I would need to be energized and jokey in my posture, expression, and voice. Now, ask yourself, did the medicine you wrote about rely on you changing, them changing, or an act of God or the cosmos? Right? Because oftentimes when people think a relationship could be better, it hinges on another person changing or a circumstance or phenomena being different. They'd have to stop doing that thing. I'd have to quit my job at Phillips. I'd move somewhere warmer, cheaper, quieter, colder, more palm trees. We'd retire. The kids would move out. We'd get a bigger house, a smaller house. We'd make more money. She'd spend less money. So the next question is, what would be the medicine for this situation that comes from inside you, not from changing externals? The medicine that empowers you. And I'll say too here that if there actually is, I'm joking about she spends too much, but there actually are real situations that could be present for anyone. Addiction, alcohol use, drug use, spending use, something like that. And so as we progress through the questions, a self-inquiry process might be, how can I get more empowered to bring this situation to change? And maybe that's like getting professional help. So I just want to make sure everyone knows I'm not trying to lead us in a direction that goes, yeah, just fix yourself inside and all the problems will go away. It's actually not about that at all. Next question. When you are psyched to be with this person, what does that feel like in your body? Next piece of paper. What 3 things can you do to help grow that feeling in your body even more? Next question. What 3 things would you need to stop doing or do differently for this relationship to be ideal? Next question. What 3 things could you let go of or stop trying to fix to make room for a new way of relating? And again, if this is a serious issue you're talking about, it could be letting go of withdrawing and actually getting professional help. It could be letting go of nagging and actually taking an effective action. There's so many ways to go with these questions. Next question. What would you need to focus on so that you could feel good even if your spouse or person does not get fixed or changed, even if it would be for the greater good of the whole world, if only they would get fixed? Yes. What would you need to focus on with your person so that you could feel good even if they never, ever, ever get fixed or changed of something you identify that's difficult? It was fun in the test group because we would do these questions and people would go, whoa. So I got a lot of feedback if it was hitting home or not. So remember, this is an inquiry, not me trying to like get you to agree to one answer. So the next question is this inquiry. Is it possible that this characteristic or habit of your person could change or heal even more easily if you stopped trying to fix it? So not ignoring it, but any habitual response like nagging, pressuring, or whatever that may be, bringing a different type of medicine to this situation. Next question. What other belief, behavior, story, expectation, or emotional habit of yours could you change? And this may be where you recognize, some people have what I call their rant, right? The thing they get really worked up, they got a rant they default back to about someone. Or where you realize you've gotten complacent and think, well, this will never change, so I just have to put up with that one thing. I love my person, but this one thing I'm complacent on. So that's like a story or belief or an expectation that's worth changing. Next question. How would you need to be different in your posture, facial expression, and voice tone for more magic to happen? Thank you, yeah. Thank you so much. Next question, what 3 things are the most important things to stop blaming your person, difficult relation, or spouse for? Okay, next, we're going to write 3 3-sentence stories. I'm going to give you the prompt for each one at a time, and I'm going to have you write 3 sentences to answer. Okay? Story number 1. If everything goes your way and your person or spouse suddenly acts in every best way your dreams can conjure, what would you be like? Finish the story in 3 sentences. And if you're sitting there thinking, I got it, this is great with my spouse, I don't have this problem, you're allowed to think of someone you have a difficult relationship with, because this is really a process that can be used with anybody. So if all of a sudden that difficult person suddenly acted in every best way that your dreams could conjure, what would you be like? Finish the story in 3 sentences. Story number 2. If divorce or permanently relocating to the garage are not options, but your spouse or person suddenly becomes 10x their worst qualities, what would you be like? Finish the story in 3 sentences. See, next time I got to make a note that newlyweds aren't allowed to do it on each other. Because they're all like, what? This isn't relevant. If you're having the what, it isn't relevant, switch it in your mind to somebody you have a challenging relationship with. You're allowed to revert. This is so great. The newlyweds are both making faces of so much distaste of these questions. Hey, maybe that's the key of someone who these questions... No, never mind, just kidding. Okay. Story number 3. If nothing much changes, but you suddenly learn how to be more free, more fun, more loving, more tolerant, and learn ways to bring the best out of yourself and your person, spouse, or challenging relationship, finish the story in 3 sentences. Next is a quote that I modified a little bit from Tony Robbins. If we don't sculpt ourselves into what we're capable of being, then we accidentally become what life or circumstance has provided us the opportunity to show up as. I'll read it again. If we don't sculpt ourselves into what we're capable of being, then we accidentally become what life or circumstance has provided us the opportunity to show up as. All right, so next question. Who do you want to be, and what is it you want to multiply in life, love, and work? And how can you best sculpt yourself? Next question. What is your biggest inner obstacle or not very useful habit that you're going to need to catch and change again and again to sculpt your best self? Do it for the difficult person. You gotta have some family member. Okay, do it for that person. I should have thought of that, because I could have said, if you're already feeling you're at the peak of where you could be in marriage, you could pick somebody together, a family or a relative or someone, and then co-create the list together. I didn't think of that. That would have been real good. Yeah. Because then that's a bonding exercise too. Like, all right, we're gonna tackle this annoying relative together. Mm-hmm. Okay, good. That's good. It's because Ron's the man.
That's the problem.
And he had 2 Elvises at his wedding. 2 Elvises. All right, the next is a little bit paraphrased from Tony Robbins too. Questions control what you focus on, and what you focus on is what you feel, and what you feel is your experience of life. What primary question can you stay focused on in service of sculpting your best self? Now this is actually a point where I hope a couple people might be willing to share. Is anyone willing to share what their question is? Yeah?
How do people feel about me when I'm dead?
Yes. How do people feel about me when I'm dead? That is a hell of a question. Yep. Yes.
Am I doing my best?
Am I doing my best? Super question. I'll tell you what mine is. So I actually revised it in the bathroom here this morning. How can I get people to feel so fuck yeah around me that they pick me up in the air? That's my question. I got some work to do. I got to study that, because that's a whole way of being, right? It's a way of thinking. It's a voice. It's a posture. It's an expression. It's being not stuffy and a lot more lighthearted and free. I mean, you got to really stir something in someone for them to feel so excited they'll pick you up. And then I got to be like, careful, my tailbone. I got a tailbone injury. You got to do it like this. Okay, who else will share their question? Yeah?
Am I being real or just trying to impress?
I love it. Am I being real or just trying to impress? Who else? Yeah?
Learn today to make me a better person.
Say it a little louder.
What can I learn today to make me a better
Oh,
person?
I love it. What can I learn today to make me a better person? That is such a great guiding question. Really great guiding question. I mean, it trains your consciousness to actually look every single day. I mean, the tendency of human nature is to put as many things as possible on autopilot. I mean, our brain is wired that way. Like, the more things we can run on autopilot, the better. And if we stay in a question of what else can I learn, what can I learn today, we override that. Who else? Yeah?
And why is it important to keep engaged and keep myself moving forward?
Why is it important to keep myself engaged and keep moving forward? Oh, I love it. The why. Digging out the why behind all the effort. Because if you stay hooked to the why, then the effort's different, isn't it? Yeah.
Can I get away from asking what's in it for me?
Oh, I love it. Can I get away from asking what's in it for me? Service heart, baby. Service heart. Oh, I love it. Alan Phillips, you ready yet over there?
How can I be always aware?
How can I always be always aware? I love it. I love it. You know, this is why I needed to see all of Benny's session, because there was value in every moment. But in those first few moments of Sadhguru, he said we have the resources to solve the world's problem. The only thing we're missing is consciousness. And elevating consciousness starts with awareness. Now, I have another quote. I actually split it into 2 slides so that we can actually savor what's going down, because this is from a 14th century Persian poet. He lived 1350 to 1390. And this guy was speaking right into the heart of what we're talking about. Now, he titled his poem with an HR error, so I'm sorry about that. The Vintage Man, we'll forgive him. The Vintage People. So this is Hafez, living in 1370-ish. The difference between a good artist and a great one is the novice will often lay down his tool or brush, then pick up an invisible club on the mind's table and helplessly smash the easels and jade. What's he talking about in that first part of that poem? Yeah, what's he talking about, an invisible club on the mind's table? I mean, that's our thoughts, our words, our assumptions about people, the stories we get stuck in about people. It's like an invisible club in our mind's eye, right? And then we helplessly smash the easels and the jade, like the beautiful jewels, gems, or treasures of another person, especially a difficult person at work. Smash, smash, smash in my mind's eye. Really petty small talk, whatever it is. All right, and here's the second half of his poem. Whereas the vintage person no longer hurts himself or anyone and keeps on sculpting light. I love that poem. All right, so there's a next opportunity here. This is for the really daring greatly. Is there anybody who wants to walk up to the shredder in the posture or facial expression of their less superpower self, shred some documents, and walk back to their chair in their biggest self? Alan? And the reason I ask is not just like, oh, she called it wrong on this one, she's asking him to do something dumb and nobody wants to do it. The reason why is that one of the biggest parts of transformative learning is to actually learn something different in your body. I picked up salsa in Costa Rica when I was in my 20s and like really love salsa dancing. I mean, I'm dancing with paralysis, so that's unique. And I never had any lessons, so I went 20 years dancing to the ability I could, just street style. And there's an upper limit you hit, right? I mean, I couldn't dance that great, and I couldn't dance with the people I wanted to. So finally, this summer, I found a teacher that could work with me, because I'd tried before. Not everyone could figure out the mystery of missing brain lobes and stuff like that. And I started taking salsa lessons. And I've had this conversation with Nardo on golfing and some others on other sports. Man, your brain gets some habit wired in, and it can be the dumbest thing, and you're doing it all wrong, and it looks bad, and you're not at the height of the game, but it feels right. So you default to it over and over and over. And the only way to change it is real-time coaching, a lot of it. I had these patterns of salsa wired in wrong so bad. I think my instructors already corrected me on the same thing, probably in the 800 or 900 times category, to the point where I've gotten a little teary-eyed sometimes, like, I really am still doing that? Yes, you're doing that. I mean, I didn't even believe the dude at first. I had to start bringing videotapes to class because he would tell me some stuff and I'd be like, he's exaggerating, or I'm not doing it that bad, or what he wants me to do is too extreme. He's trying to make me look like a pole dancer or something. But I go home and look at the video, and instead I look like a pole stuck somewhere it shouldn't be, not a pole dancer. And the only minutes he said, yeah, good, was the only minutes I looked half decent for a second. So I had to start trusting this guy and realizing that my own internal sense of what was right wasn't really right at all. So embodied learning is a huge part of transformation. And being able to really notice, I mean, we had the questions like, how would you feel in your body, if you were really psyched to be with this person, and I probably should have asked in there too, how are you in your body when you go into habitual self, maybe myself that wants to be like the little dog who grabs the sock and runs away, maybe there's an ornery little look, and whereas if I'm like, okay, yeah, hi, right, this other thing. So, does anybody want to come to the shredder and have a ceremonial freeing of old self, an embodied way of being, new ideal?
So Bridget,
Yeah?
why do you dance?
Oh.
Is it to do it a certain way or to make you feel good?
Oh, it's to feel, I've had more numinous God-connected experiences dancing than anything else I've done. I've also gone into an altered state of consciousness and into the zone more with salsa than with anything else. So I've actually been kind of on a 20-year quest of how to liberate more and more of those experiences. And this is actually how I got so intensely into meditation, because if I show up at salsa and I haven't meditated the entire way in the car, I will show up with a paralysis that's like this, and you can't dance with that. So I have to in my mind's eye, transform my being so that I can surrender into a type of movement that shouldn't be possible. And to me, it's one of the most miraculous things that can happen in life. And it connects me to a force and a source that's much greater than I have access to when I'm just trying to do my own thing through the rational, linear, habitual way. So for a long time, one of the reasons I didn't mess with lessons was it was good enough. I was having incredible joy and a lot of numinous experiences. There came a point where I just knew, all right, I'm ready to take this to the next level. And there is a next level. There's a next level in anything. There would probably be a next level even for the honeymooners. And to be ready for that next level, it can be so hard to take on real-time coaching. I said I got teary-eyed after about the 700 or 800 correction, but I actually got teary-eyed about the first 30 because it kind of hurt my feelings, oh God, and then, self-consciousness interferes with freedom. But this is like people who deconstruct their entire golf swing and they get way worse for a while. They wonder if they messed up bad, they shouldn't have touched their golf swing. But it comes back later, and not only is the outcome more successful, but once the body is rewired of how it feels, it should be an even more satisfying or joyful or in the zone type of feel. But those things don't just happen by default. Did that answer? Yes. All right, and to walk with your expect. Yeah, there you go. Woo! Yeah, Chris. Yeah, baby. All right, who else wants to shred? Yeah! Woo, 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 woo. Now let's stand up. Woo! Woo, 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 woo. Oh yeah, we got a shredding lineup. That's right. Yeah! Woo, 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 woo. And remember, ceremonial, we're freeing ourselves of limitations or old habits or expectations. All right. All right, yeah. That's a scanner, not a shredder. Yeah. The shredding's for fun, but absolutely. I mean, really, that's my highest hope, is that you wrote down something that maybe was an aha moment. If we're really lucky, another mic drop. That was really fun. She went, oh my God, it's all my fault. I thought it was his fault. Yeah. Rick, what are you gonna do with what you wrote down?
Take it to heart and keep it.
Yeah. Totally. I mean, nobody has to share anything, but is there anyone who would want to say a sentence or two about any takeaway? An aha moment?
Yeah, I mean, I think the takeaway is understand that most of what aggravates us is within us. And then we project that onto other people. And then when we get frustrated, it's the else.
Yeah, so well said, that what aggravates us is often inside of ourselves. Or, I mean, there's real phenomena of people being annoying or aggravating, but if we're hooked in the old way of being, then we're probably not bringing magic to the situation the way it could. So I mean, like I said, when I did it for the difficult person, I suddenly realized, oh, I have an energetic wall up against this person. So how am I actually going to be able to bring my radical candor and my bring energy to the game for this person if I, in my mind's eye, without even noticing it, just put a wall and said, well, I don't trust, so this is strained and this is fake and this is whatever. That's actually not optimal at all. But there is a vulnerability factor because, I mean, what if the person is a little bit of a jackass?
That's the point. I mean, somebody can be a total jerk, but you don't have to be a jerk back. It's not important for you to reflect back what you're receiving.
Yes.
It's important to reflect back love and respect and kindness.
Yes, so important not to reflect back being a jerk, but to reflect back love or kindness, or just damn radical candor and effective action. But if we're hooked, if we're in upset, then that mangles and bungles the whole thing.
So I've been trading emails with a friend about some of this stuff, and kind of working on the idea that the reality that we create is not only not real, but it's really ridiculous. And laughing at it is great.
Yeah, so that point, Bill, then the jackass is not really a jackass, right? It's something that you made up, right?
Could be.
Yeah.
Or at the very least, if you live like you made it up, suddenly a whole new realm of possibilities become available. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the weird things about, I had 25 years now of clients. Sometimes, I mean, I used to see 17 people a day, and it's acupuncture, so people would come in and not only tell their symptoms, but kind of tell their whole life story. And I'd be all day going, damn, that person's worldview is so different from that one and that one and that one. And you get about a year's worth of that under your belt, and you're like, it's all made up. And why is that one so fixated on that? They could just switch their consciousness, and then, I mean, it's like so weird. I have these moments all the time. And I look at the little 5-pound dog and be like, that dude's got it figured out. Wag your tails, put back your ears, and have fun, and run away with the sock. And be like, and everybody wants to pick him up, so damn it, I'm learning from my dog. Yeah, I mean, put that in the notes on Phillips Corporation. Like, it's all about using love, life, and work as a university for self-development. Because if we're not approaching love, life, and work as a university of self-development, then we get stuck in shutdown, breakdown. I mean, like I said, I saw the film crew out there, and I had an opportunity where I had to go, I'm going to grow and use this as a university and not freak out and whoop Alan's butt. You guys like it?
Crushed it.
Yeah! Crushed it! Thank you.